So I want to start with something that sort of took me years to understand, and it's really why most fitness programs for individuals in that 50 to 80 age group um, fail that particular demographic. And it's not the nutrition program, it's not the schedule, it's not the exercises, right? I mean, all the programs basically have the same plans, if you will. It happens when you're in your head when things get hard, and the inner critic. Okay, and we've talked about the inner critic. The motivation disappears. That setback compounds to giving up. The absence of a clear long term vision. So all of that, I'll call it psychological and behavioral foundation underneath the physical, we'll say training, that really is what determines what sticks. And almost no fitness program, and there could be one out there, I haven't found it, for our age group addresses it. And that's why the UCAN, the system does, and we're going to talk about that today. The inner critic is that voice that says, you're too old, you're too far gone, uh, it's too late, your best years are behind you. That's that inner critic, right? We've all heard that. Decline is inevitable. And I lived with that voice for years, in my early 50s. But, one of the most sort of, I'll say, important things I ever learned about this when I started researching it is that's really not an honest self assessment that's occurring. Okay. It's a protection mechanism that's built into us. Your brain is really trying to protect you from the effort and that discomfort that goes along with it. And it's convincing you, don't try that. Okay, it's trying to protect you from failure, and it's that fear. It's sort of dressed up in wisdom, and that's really the distinction. If you got to really understand, the distinction between the two of them, and it's important. Because once you know that fear, you can work with it. And this is how I address the inner critic. We all have one. Um, it's a question I ask every time that inner critic gets loud, and I ask myself, is this an honest self-assessment of my capability, or is this my brain trying to protect me from that um, discomfort as I put my effort? Um, and it almost always is the second one. The capability is there. The willingness to be uncomfortable is really that voice that's questioning. Am I willing to be uncomfortable? Um, and willingness is trainable. Every time you do something difficult, or you overcome something, that voice will become slightly quieter. And that's what I found now heading into 60. So, um, and we've also discussed, that feeling associated with, working out, and saying how, motivation is really not going to get you through in, your long-term fitness goals. It won't get you there. Um, Motivation is not what gets me to train. It's a feeling. Those feelings come and go. Discipline is what gets me there. Feelings come based on sleep quality, stress, time of the month, what happened at work, how sore I am from the last session, and about 100 other factors. If I wait to feel motivate to train, that's maybe 3 times a month I feel motivated to train. Um, this is actually a fitness practice. It's not a hobby. So discipline is different. Discipline is a decision made in advance. It independent of how I feel in the moment. The practical difference between, we'll say, motivation and discipline is this: motivation requires that right feeling before you act. Um, Discipline acts first and then lets the feeling follow. And here's, I would say, the thing most people do not know. The feeling almost always follows. Okay. The hardest part in any training session is the first 5 minutes before you start. Once you're moving, the motivation often appears, on its own. Um, and so, the three tools that we have in our UCAN system makes discipline practical rather than, let's say, theoretical. First, lay your training clothes out the night before. We've discussed this. The friction of getting ready drops to zero, right? Because they're there. Second, define your minimum effective dose. Ahead of time, what is that minimum effective dose? So on your worst days, you know what showing up looks like. It could be 10 minutes, a walk. Define specifically what that is for you, and that's decisions been made in advance. Third, make sure you have you block out the time for training, whenever that is. Mine's 4:30 in the morning, but block that out, and then you put those tools in place. That's discipline. And that's important because that will drive consistency, and that's one of our pillars. Okay. The growth mindset's the next thing we're going to talk about, and we've discussed this in specific videos. The belief that the growth mindset declines as you age, that the ability to develop the results through effort diminishes with age. And it's one of the most, mindsets, one of the most sort of research concepts in psychology. And what it shows is something most people, I would say, don't expect. And that a growth mindset does not, I'll say, become less useful as you age. It becomes more powerful. Adults with a strong growth mindset, show significantly higher levels of passion and grit. And passion and grit are those qualities that you need for the long-term sort of fitness success, sort of regardless of your age. I know we focus on 50, 80, but really regardless of age. And so, my practical application for, our age group is, a fixed mindset, as we said, is, hey, I'm too old. Um, I'm too old for this. I'm too old to get stronger. Growth mindset, says I haven't built it yet, right? Um, my fixed mindset says my body can't do what it used to. A growth mindset says my body adapting to what I'm asking it to do. Um, but same situation, but totally different trajectories. Um, every difficult, hard session is an indication of decline. It's really an indication of adaptation, that you've adapted, and the discomfort is growth. Working. That's the way I look at it. And now dealing with setbacks and how you deal with setbacks. You know, in our particular age group, there are a lot of opportunities for setbacks, right? Work, family members, a lot going on. And the question is not whether the setback happens. It's going to happen. It's how long the gap is before you come back. Um, and the length of the gap, is really entirely determined by, how you respond to that setback in the first 24 to 48 hours, how you respond to it. Um, Specifically, as we discussed, you just respond to that setback with compassion. If you go with self criticism, your chances of coming back, are minimized. Because as we said, the research on, we'll call it fitness program adherence, in adults who respond to setbacks, with self compassion, um, come back significantly faster than those who respond with self criticism and that inner critic. So I have a specific protocol that I come back with. It takes 2 minutes. And say out loud or write it down. I missed sessions this week. I missed 2 weeks worth of sessions. I'm being honest, right? No drama. Just a fact. Step two, I refuse to let the spiral take a hold of me psychologically. I don't let that shame of that, set in and take hold, right? This does not mean I'm failing 1 hard week, 2 hard weeks. Not my, it's not my identity. And step three is, return. I say when I'm coming back, and you know, and then you just do that one thing. You said, you commit and do that one thing. Um, the comeback is always, smaller than the shame spiral, sort of makes it feel, always. The long-term vision exercise, this is actually, pretty fun. You're going to write, a long-term letter to yourself, your 75-year-old self. If you're already 75, go ahead and stretch a little bit, maybe to your 90-year-old self. And it's really one of the most powerful mindset exercises that we have at Getting Older and Stronger. And it's in the Getting Older and Stronger guide. And it's, I would say, pretty impactful. All right. And you just write a short letter to yourself, written as if you are 75 years old looking back, and you describe your body at 75, what you can still do, how you feel when you wake up in the morning, what does an active day look like, what do people around you say about how you've aged. You write it in the present tense as if it's already true. Be specific, be honest about what actually matters to you at 75. Then put it somewhere where you see it, on your phone, wallpaper, refrigerator, in your journal if you're a journaler. And you read it once a month. And when your present self sort of wants to give up, let that 75-year-old version, sort of help you pull through. Let that 75-year-old future self, guide you. So the free, mindset and motivation guide is on the website. These are sort of all the big, pillars that, we've gone through as part of, the mindset and motivation. So go ahead and subscribe. We're going to go into more specifics on protein. That's coming up next, and we're going to dive into that. So follow along. And you could also we're on Facebook community as far as Getting Older and Stronger. And you can go there and share your stories, but follow, subscribe.